year for the past 20 plus years by the Bridport Grange and Addison County Farm Bureau. We hope that you'll be able to all stay for lunch too, because there's a lunch plan when we're at the end of our program this morning. First of all, let me renew the thought of the rules of what we're doing. This is for discussion, questions for your legislators. You may make short statements, please, if that's what you need to do. We have a red light system up front, and we're going to try to, because of the numbers of people that we're expecting this morning, we're going to try to maintain that. Legislators get 3 minutes to start at the very beginning to introduce themselves and talk about what they're doing for just 3 minutes in their committee. If you can just give a general overview so that the folks can get the idea that you're working and get the idea of what questions they'd like to ask you. Folks who come up to the microphone, and everybody is asked to come to the microphone to speak, will have 2 minutes to state what they need to state or question. Please don't touch the microphone. We've taped it this time so that it will stay where it belongs. You may have to stoop a little bit to get to the microphone, but that's the best way that they'll continue to work so that we can all hear. When you step to the microphone for your 2 minutes, please give us your name and the town in Addison County that you're from. That way we'll know who it is speaking and what the questions are. So there'll be 2 minutes for questions, and legislators will have 3 minutes to answer. And the lights will turn yellow when it's time to start winding down, and they'll turn red, and I'll come up and shut your microphone off. Thank you again for coming. Charlie,
yeah, just one thing. We have Braley up back from FFA, and she will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to get started.
Great.
Oh, it's there. It's under the. Oh, there it is.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Braley. I would ask each legislator to step to the microphone and in order, or whatever you want, and we'll get started. Senator Hardy.
Good morning, everyone. I would just need to adjust it up a little bit. Hopefully this works. Can you all hear me? Is it working? Okay. I think it's just Rep. North and me here today. But I'm Senator Ruth Hardy. I'm one of the 2 senators that represent you in the Addison district. I serve on, in the Senate, we serve on 2 committees. I serve on the Senate Natural Resources Committee in the morning and the Senate Finance Committee in the afternoon. As you probably, for those of you who've been here all along, know that we had crossover a few weeks ago where the bills from the House came to the Senate and the bills from the Senate came to the House. So the last couple of weeks since we've last been together, we've been getting to know the House bills in the Senate. I'm sure they're doing the same in the House. And so we did a lot of walkthrough of bills just to know what's in them, and now we're really starting to dig in to take testimony on them. In the Minority Committee, the Natural Resources Committee, we are working on a few bills that may be of interest to folks. We are working on a bill about land posting, and I've heard from a lot of people in Addison County about that. Sorry, I know that my back is to a lot of you. Apologies, but it's a little awkward. But land posting bill, I think we've come to a compromise. Actually, I think the House Committee came to a compromise, and probably the Senate will concur, maybe make a little bit of a tweak to it, but pass it so it makes it easier for people to post their land, not have to date those signs. and to do it any time of the year, not on January 1st when the snow is really deep and it's hard to get out and do those signs. We're also working on an update to the bottle bill. For those of you who've been following along for the last few years, we've been working on a bottle bill, an update to the bottle bill for as long as I've been in the Senate, and even longer for some people. But I think hopefully we've got a compromise that will move forward, that will make our bottle redemption system more sustainable by creating a producer responsibility organization with the distributors and manufacturers to help our redemption centers stay in business, so we can all take our bottles, which is a clean recycling stream and more likely to be recycled. So those are two highlights from the morning committee, with more in there that I could talk about, but in the afternoon, I see the light. I want to get to the afternoon committee. The finance committee is always extremely busy the second half of the session. Any bill that has an impact on the revenues of the state come to our committee. So we are looking at a bunch of bills, plus we also have banking and insurance in our committee, and so we have several bills that update insurance statutes, which I'm happy to talk about if anyone wants to know about insurance. But we also are looking at our miscellaneous tax bill. I know that I have a red light, but there are only a couple of us here, so I'm going to finish about taxes. It's 88 pages long, and it's truly a miscellaneous bill. A lot of it is updating our tax laws in response to the HR 1, which was the major federal tax bill last year. A lot of it has to do with corporate taxes, and I'm happy to dig into that more. And we're waiting to get all of the education finance bills, which will take a lot of our time in the later part of this month. So that's it for now. Thank you. Go ahead, Rob.
Robin's here too.
We do have.
Robin's here.
I'm behind you.
Peter and Karen.
Peter just snuck in.
Just snuck in, okay,
And
excellent.
we have 4 legislators.
Awesome.
Yes.
5.
Really good number.
So we've got Karen, so we've got a help. Yeah.
Great, so the more of us than just the pair of us.
Yes.
Great. My name is Rob North. I represent the Greater Virgins area. I live in Ferrisburg, so I represent Ferrisburg, Virgins, Panton, Addison, Waltham, and half of New Haven. And I'm in the House of Representatives. This is my first term, so I'm in my second year of my first term, newly elected in 24. And very thankful for those of you who are here from my district for giving me the opportunity to serve you. As many of you, I have always been rather wary of politicians. And now that I am one, I'm a bit of a self-conflict there. What I've found being in the House, that it's not so much the politicians you need to be wary of. In fact, I have met lots of really, really good people, a lot of very smart people in the House, and from all walks of life, and have been very impressed with the quality of people. I'm not going to say absolutely everyone is top-notch. There are those that have earned their reputation and their nicknames follow them. But most people, for the most part, are very good. I tried very hard during my we call it our freshman year, your first year you're in and serving, your freshman year. I worked personally very hard to keep at least our entire freshman class. There were 50 of us that were brand new for this biennium that newly got elected. And it was about half Democrat, half Republican in that new batch of 50. I worked very hard to pull that group together, work across the aisles, because we all got elected on the same issues. High property taxes, public safety, education, you name it. You go right down, we all got elected on those same issues, so we should have had a lot of comment together and worked together on these things. That worked really well for the first several months. As we got together, I got us together multiple times as a whole group. Until party politics started to come into play. And I hate to say that, but it makes it really hard to operate the way we would all like to see democracy operate when party politics comes into play. And that group got pulled apart, and it's been very challenging. In fact, I haven't even pulled the group together yet, again, this year in 26. I plan to do that again shortly, and we're going to get as many of us together as we can. I serve on the Environment Committee, very similar to what you heard Senator Hardy talk about. We've talked about the SALT bill, which was an interesting one that recently passed out of the House. that came across from the Senate. We've talked about land posting. I think came to a really good compromise there. A lot of people were requesting what's called the purple paint. You know, some way to just very simply paint your trees to mark your property so you wouldn't have to go around every year. We decided to scale back from the purple paint, but just make the signs essentially permanent. Still use the signs, but now you don't have to date them every year. You can just post your signs once, and as long as you go every year to the town clerk's office to update it, then you're good. So I know I'm now at the red light. Probably I just want to say the most incredible thing, or the most popular thing that we have had recently is Act 181 and how to deal with the impacts of that is now upon us in terms of its implementation dates. And some amazing testimony, amazing rallies, incredible amount of information coming at us on that from the people. And we are reacting to that, and it is forcing, and I'm getting back to where I started, going all the way around, it is forcing party politics to be set aside and forcing us to work together, because we're hearing this unified voice from Vermonters, what they want out of this, and to repeal Tier 3 and repeal the road rule that is extremely popular coming from the populace, and we're being forced to work together on it, and I'm very thankful for that, so thank you.
Okay. Representative from Middlebury.
Good morning, everybody. Is this on? Yeah, okay. So nice to see you all. Sorry I was a couple minutes late, came in the middle of Senator Hardy's, but I guess we're supposed to talk a little bit about what we're up to in our committees. My name is Robin Scheid. I've been representing Middlebury for 10 years now, and I chair the House Appropriations Committee, which is the committee that appropriates all the money for the state. So we do the state budget, and any bill that has any money at all to be appropriated, even if it's $1,000, comes to our committee. So we get to see lots of things from all the policy committees, in addition to the work that we do on the budget. I think the last time when we were in Weybridge, we had not yet passed out the budget. We were still working on it in my committee. The budget starts in House Appropriations. And I'm pleased to say that our budget passed unanimously on an 11-0 vote out of our committee. So people can get unanimous votes still, at least in Vermont. And we have a really diverse group on our committee. There's 11 of us, Democrats, Republicans. We represent all four corners of the state, from the Northeast Kingdom to Bennington and Brattleboro and Franklin County. We represent rural, urban, and everything in between. And we really try to work together to come to solutions that we can all agree on. And so I was really pleased to have a unanimous budget out of the committee. Made particularly challenging, we agreed with virtually everything that the governor proposed in his budget. We start with his proposed budget and then take it from there. But in addition, we had another $250 million in requests for needs for Vermonters around the state. And we were able to find about $19 million to try to address $250 million in requests. That is a lot of hard decision-making. We really tried to focus on where we could support the most Vermonters, and to try to minimize harm. And I won't go through the list of things that we did, but we ensured that there was more money for Meals on Wheels and taking care of elderly and disabled, people who are deaf and blind. The governor taking out an interpreter, and we put the money back in for that. People who are deaf and blind can't use Braille, they can't hear things, so they use an interpreter that uses fingers to fingers, and without that, they don't have that kind of communication with the outer world. So we put some money back in for that. Vermonters Feeding Vermonters is another program that we added some money back into that. That's a win for farmers as well as for the food banks to get food for people. We also had a rapid food response program with the Department of Public Safety, flood money for some of the Northeast Kingdom. The federal government denied FEMA. And some Freedom and Humanity scholarships for the Vermont State Universities to help Vermonters go to college and with the last dollar in so they'd have free tuition. So those are just some of the things that we have done in the budget. The budget passed out of the House. It's now in Senate Appropriations, and they're planning to vote it out of their committee this coming Friday. So more to come. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. There's two left. Karen, go ahead.
Oh, well, this is your district. I'm
Representative
from Addison 4, but I'm happy to be here.
Morning, everybody. My name is Peter Conlon. I am in the House. I represent Cornwall, Goshen, Leicester, River, and Salisbury. Like Robin, I'm in my 10th year in the House, and I'm the chair of the House Education Committee. We have been working really since the beginning of January on coming up with sort of a compromise education transformation legislation that would essentially move our state towards newer, larger school districts, but really on a voluntary basis, meaning that we are going to encourage and help districts to merge together, but we are not going to require it. The legislation is really designed to say, okay, it is time to prepare for the eventuality of a change in how we fund our education system to what we call a foundation formula, and that it is going to require some adjustment. And so it's giving districts around the state the opportunity to come together and say, will we be better off together than apart as we move to this new funding system across the state? So we passed a bill out of our committee last week. It then went to the Ways and Means Committee to really figure out how to transition into the new funding formula, how to transition into some changes in how we tax property and how we assess property across the state. So it's a less roller coaster ride and more of an even level playing field with taxation. And the bill continues to move along. It'll probably be out of the full House next week and move into the Senate. That's really been kind of the major focus of the work of our committee. I'll hold there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Hi folks, thanks for being here today. I'm from Addison 4, so I'm not from Middlebury. I represent Lincoln, Bristol, Starksboro, Moncton, but I'm happy to be here and listen to what your concerns are, and if any of my constituents are here, I'd love to speak with you too and just hear what your concerns are. There's so many large areas of transformation going on now in the legislature. It's very dense, so it's education, it's land use, it's healthcare. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Tell us who you are. Tell us who you are.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Karen Leaders.
I know.
I feel like well anyways, and I live in Lincoln. I was recently appointed this past fall. So I entered this legislative work at such an extraordinary time of transformation in actually every large area, and they're all complex areas. I'm on the healthcare committee. We've been working with a lot of bills. A lot of things were now sent over to the Senate for their consideration. There's an Array RX bill, which means if you have prescriptions and you want to get a very good discount on those prescriptions and have your data kept private, this is a wonderful vehicle for that. Depending on how you feel about vaccines, we now have vaccines that met the prior list of advisable vaccines on the federal level. A lot of those were removed, but in Vermont, should you choose to have those vaccines, and you can. So there's a lot of things that have been passed over to the Senate, but right now we are delving into primary health care, how to fund that. This H 433, which has come off the wall, but not in time for crossover, but we're considering all the different ways we might provide universal access or access to primary health care so that we save the system money, so that everyone has a caregiver they can go to that can really look at them comprehensively and surround services. So what we are actually looking at is a Senate bill that's doing something similar. There are many different mechanisms and ways to go about it, and on a steep learning curve as to what all the different options are. There are some major obstacles. I think of them as giant rocks, but we're trying to work through them as best we can. I guess that's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Did I miss any legislators?
Steve.
I just showed up.
Okay. You snuck in.
I did. Good morning, Steve Heffernan, your Addison County Senator. Let's see, in ag, currently we're working on the paraquat bill. That's
a chemical that's used by mainly apple orchards and fruit producers to kill back weeds. And the upside with paraquat is it does a very good job of killing the grass and the roots, but not affecting the plant that they are trying to grow. One of the biggest problems with paraquat, it's linked now to Parkinson's disease, which is a huge concern to all of us. We don't take that lightly in ag. However, we are doing a thorough deep dive to see the use of it here in Vermont, how widely it's used, how it is applied. That has a lot to do with whether it's going to disperse out into the environment to affect the neighbors of the surrounding orchard or growing area. So we're still looking at that. That's a very big concern by all of us, especially the growers. The growers, it's been used since 1966 or longer in the United States. It's banned in 70 other countries. The major reason for it being banned in other countries is not because of its application, but because of how some people use it for, a little bit of this stuff kills quick. And it's pretty scary how some people have used it. So it's very regulated here in the United States. People take it serious that are using it, so we're taking a deep dive into that. We passed about $6 million worth. We were asking from the House of Appropriations to pass for budgeting that the Ag Department saw, and we're really pushing to get it all okayed because the ag industry brings in about $11.5 billion into Vermont. So the needs of our farmers asking $6.6 million, we don't believe that's too much of an ask out of our state budget to help in the S60 program for environmental disasters such as floods, frost, etc., as well as food share for the high schools and elderly, SNAP. So we're really pushing to get all those funded. As we all know, Vermont is in a very tight spot. There's only 640,000 of us, and there's not a lot of money to go around, especially after coming off in our COVID funding. That's made it really hard. In education, we've looking at a couple different bills there. Nothing that's really stands out that I should speak about at this moment, but if somebody has an issue and wants to talk about it, I'm happy to do that. Of course, Act 181 has come to the forefront of everything. Landowners are really starting to speak up. It was passed, and I don't believe people had really looked into the bill it does a lot of good things. The Tier 1 part is very good for Vermont. It definitely does help grow more housing here in Vermont. The Tier 2 and 3, that's where I believe it's cutting into landowners' rights, privileges, etc. I'm going to be a big advocate to scale that back, if not get rid of it. That's about my briefing. And any questions, be happy to answer later on. Thanks.
Thank you, Steve. I think we're open now to general questions from the public. If you want to ask a question, certainly you could go right to the microphone and tell us who you are. Go right ahead.
Good morning. My name is Renee McGinnis. I live in Moncton. It's in 4 districts. So I appreciate my representatives and senators being here today. My question is for Senator Ruth Hardy. My main concern is access to participation in the system. 2 years ago in Senate Health and Welfare, in which Senator Hardy served, there was a bill for minors to consent to STI treatments, which includes vaccines and HPV, AIDS, vaccines, shots, and drugs. And I asked to testify on this bill. I'm the Vermont Family Alliance Policy Analyst. I sent in my testimony. The chair of the committee, Virginia Lyons, Senator Virginia Lyons, refused to upload my testimony. I wanted to point out that a section of this bill, S-151, was violating federal law that requires that parents and guardians must be presented with the vaccine information sheets before their minor children are administered vaccines. Not only was my testimony not uploaded, I was denied the opportunity to testify in committee. I reached out to Senator Hardy to ask if she would advocate for me. I'm a constituent, would you please get me in? And she said that she doesn't have any influence over who gets to testify. Now, I think that system needs to change. I don't believe that actually, because I have been working with other legislators who are not, I'm not their constituent, and they have listened to me and advocated for my points of view in various committees regarding bills that affect parental rights. There's a lot of bills right now that usurp parental rights going on in the state. Some of them violate federal law. There's a lot of people that are concerned about what's going on with the federal administration, but I think we need to keep our eyes focused on what is happening in our own state house. So I would like a response from Senator Hardy why it was denied and whether or not she thinks people with opposing points of view should be allowed to testify in committees, and why she didn't help me more to testify to that committee in 2024.
Thank you, Senator Hardy.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Renee. I remember this bill. This was a bill about providing access to vaccines, preventative measures for teens to make sure that they had the preventive health care that is important for their age group. And I was not the chair of the Senate Health and Welfare Committee. It is well documented that I didn't always agree with the decisions of the chair. You can watch the videos of that. The chair of every committee is the one who decides who testifies in the committee, and we as other legislators can certainly ask a chair for members to, for our constituents to testify. I do that on a regular basis. But if a chair does not want somebody to testify, that is up to the chair. I believe that what happened is that your testimony was posted on our committee website, but I don't remember the details of it. It was 2 years ago. Also, I do believe, Ms. McGinnis, that you had testified multiple times in that committee on multiple bills. So you have testified in front of the Senate Health and Welfare Committee and other committees in the State House. I think that my record shows that I do a very good job of making sure that my my constituents have access to the State House. I'm extremely accessible and open to helping people even if I don't agree with them, and certainly listening to their point of view and trying to get their voice heard in the State House. So it's unfortunate that you feel that you were not listened to and heard, and I think that's sad. But again, that was a decision made by Senator Lyons and not by me. Thank you.
Other questions or responses for that particular issue before we go to the next issue? If not, go right ahead.
Ed Payne report. And I'm very concerned about, I think it's Act 181, but what I get so disturbed that when I read some of the stuff that I just can't remember what the act was. But anyway, there's something going on about length of driveways and roads around wildlife corridors and development and everything. And, you know, if I know I have an 1,100-foot driveway because I had to go buy good farmland to get to the woods in the back. And 800 feet or anything, we own the damn land. we pay taxes on the damn land. And I don't see why, if someone can afford a long driveway to go back into the woods with their house, we can't do it. And I don't even remember what it was about the roads around the corridors. But if we got a road, there's no reason we can't go down that road or build on that road or whatever. So I think if you wanna live in a crowded place where you can see in the window of your neighbor, that's fine. I think it'd be good for mixed-sex teenagers to look in each other's windows.
You have a red light. So thank you, Ed. Would any legislators like to address the road rule or
Rob. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you want to start or do you want me to start? Okay, I'll start. So I believe what you're talking about is what's commonly known as the road rule. It is part of the Act 181, which was the major land use bill that was passed 2 years ago. Act 181 is law right now, so just to be clear about that, we're not voting on Act 181. That was done 2 years ago. But the road rule is requires that any road that is built that is over 800 feet long, if it's a single road, or 2,000 feet if it's a series of roads going to multiple houses, would trigger what's called Act 250, which was passed in the early 1970s, and it's the land use review to make sure that the road meets all of the requirements to not have an adverse environmental impact. So that's what's commonly known as the road rule. It is very controversial. A lot of people don't like it, as Rep. North said, and that is a major focus of the testimony that has been happening in Rep. North's committee and that earlier happened in my committee. We, in the Senate, delayed implementation of the road rule for 4 years, so it won't take effect until 2030, because that is what the testimony we heard was hey, delay, which is what we did. We also made it so that there's more flexibility in applying the road rule, but it sounds like in the House they're getting even more testimony on it, and I'll let Rep. North speak to that because it sounds like there's going to be more work done on that right now.
Yeah, thank you, Ruth, and thank you, Ed, for the question. This is an extremely hot topic, and it's really, as I mentioned in my opening, gotten a lot of people speaking out from all corners of Vermont. So just to clarify, I want to feed off of what Rep. Hart talked about. So Act 250 went into place like 50 years ago. Act 181 is kind of like, you could view it as Act 250 2.0, was put in place 2 years ago by the supermajority overriding Governor Scott's veto. He really didn't like it, but it went into place over his veto by the supermajority. One of the pieces of it, there are multiple pieces within it, it basically defines the jurisdiction of where Act 250 applies, geographically identifies where Act 250 is going to apply. One of those jurisdictions is called the road rule. Another one that's of high concern to many people is called Tier 3. Those were identified by law just as guidelines for the newly identified, in that same law, 181, the LURB, Land Use Review Board, to identify exactly where those would be. So it's not fixed in statute as to where Tier 3 is and where the road rule applies, but it is fixed in statute as to the guidelines of what it means. And so there's a lot, it's very fluid right now as to exactly where those things are. In fact, the draft maps that were put out by the LURB for where the road rule is and where Tier 3 was, as soon as those became available, which was just recently, that is when you started to see this huge ramp up. That was the first time people were like, whoa, is that what this really means? And they can zoom in on the map and see, my goodness, that affects my land, or my neighbor's land, or my parents' land, or my kids' land, or my farm. So that is why I believe, Senator Hardy, why you probably didn't hear quite so much testimony about it while that bill, or while things were going on in the Senate, is because it's just over the past couple of months that people really started to become aware of it. And so now that the Bill 325 has come to the House, Bill 325, S 325, attempts to modify it, and as Senator Hardy pointed out, extend the implementation dates that are in Act 181 to push them out to like 2030. That was the Bill 325 that came across. What we're hearing, though, from the vast majority of testimony that we've taken in the House is that we don't want to just repeal it. We don't want to just push it out, because all that does is extend the time when the pain is going to come. It's just going to delay the inevitable and increase the anxiety. What do we do between now and then? Maybe people are going to rush to make all kinds of roads and do all kinds of development in the next 4 years because they know that hard deadline's coming. And it's like that's going to have the opposite effect of what we want. It's to control development where we want it. So what the overwhelming majority, and we have taken a ton of testimony, as I said, and we're going to continue this discussion next week in our committee. And right now they're calling for repeal, I believe, is what the most of the testimony said. I'm hoping that that's the direction I can convince our committee to take it next week. Thanks.
So I offered 2 amendments during when 325 came through the Senate. The first one was to repeal Tier 3 completely, take it off and being an act. The majority shot that down. So then did another amendment to at least kick it out another 2 years to 3 years. And that also got shot down. It is clear that they're not hearing the voices of Vermont. It is really clear that we've had enough. They've had a rally, emails we're getting, that I hope we start listening to our Vermonters. Farmers, loggers, landowners, they know how to steward their land. I don't believe it's Vermont legislators that should be dictating how we should treat our land that we pay taxes for and that we maintain. Thank you.
Any other legislators want to attack that? or speak about it? Yes. I knew somebody else would go.
I'm going to try not to let that red light happen. Only to say, I think with the mapping, people are, I front porch formed this issue. I highlighted it on early in the legislative session saying, pay attention to 181. That's really impacting a lot of folks. Now that we have the maps, now that we've had, as rural caucus members, a very extensive public hearing from people all over the state, we are hearing from people on the land, on their own land, how they're taking care of it, how it's impacting them, how it's impacting, folks that have for generations lived on their land. And all of a sudden, if they wanted to build a house for their child, maybe Act 250 applies. So I just wanted to say, I think the legislature is listening. I think Rob's committee is doing some great work collecting that, and I hope we will end up in a much more nuanced, better place with Act 181.
Thank you, Karen. Other questions? And I guess you're free to change subjects if you like. So step forward. I see the lines getting longer and longer.
Are you all Act 181? No.
Speak right up.
Ready? Okay. I'm Annie Wilson. I'm from Cornwall.
Can you get closer to the mic, please?
Most of our legislators from Addison have been in office from 6 to 11 years. In that time, Vermont has declined in education, highways, healthcare, and affordability, and population as some examples. You all have been there for that many years.
Nice and loud, please.
You all have been there for that many years and allowed this to happen. What future does Vermont face with you if you get reelected to your next seats? That's my question 1. I have 2 other ones. I hear the words affordable housing at every legislative breakfast. If you would stop that and make affordable living happen in Vermont, then people could afford their housing. Until you fix Vermont so that it is a place that people can afford to live, you can't possibly fix affordable housing. Stop writing and passing bills that increase spending and increase taxes. My second question is, how many bills are there that support affordable living? My third question, when it comes to, this is Act 181, when it comes to generational landowners and farmers, it comes across to me that you don't want us to be self-sufficient or have sustainability. You overregulate and mandate the farmers and landowners. You pass Act 181 without any of the stakeholders involved. You regulate farmers and DFA rapes them so much they have to diversify. Once they try to diversify, you find a way to regulate even that. Then you come up with Act 181 so that you can keep open spaces and backyard playgrounds available for the rich and elite to come and play in. At the same time, you want little 30-cow dairy farms to go along with your quaint little Vermont farm scenario. But in order for dairy farms to survive, they have to add on more cows to cover the cost of regulations and DFA's outrageous demands. And then you make them pay a permit to farm on their own land. Farmers would love to be at 30-cow herds, something that they could pass on to their families without the debt load. But the way you are running Vermont, they can't do that. Can you tell me one regulation that has actually been helpful to farmers?
Any legislators want to attempt to answer any of the questions?
Is there anybody else doing the one you want to go?
Peter?
So there was a lot there. I think we've heard a lot about Act 181 and the work that's going on in the House Environment Committee to reevaluate that and reevaluate the steps we've taken. I started 10 years ago. The governor started 10 years ago. He's been the governor for the same amount of time that I have been in the legislature. I would just remind everybody, the legislature is a group of citizens who are there for roughly 4.5 months each year and do not have the entire apparatus of state government at their control. So, I would say that the challenges facing Vermont, and they are large and deep, have a lot to do with our demographics, have a lot to do with what's going on at the federal level, have a lot to do with the fact that we are a small state, and as we age, our financial situation becomes more precarious. We are working our best, given all of those headwinds, to work on affordability. I would look at healthcare first and foremost. That is a major challenge in Vermont, but we have passed a number of bills, both in the past biennium and this biennium, that has been ratcheting down the increases in the cost of healthcare. We hope to continue to do that. Education, where I spend most of my time, is also an area that has continually increased in cost despite our demographics showing a decrease in students. Much of that is driven by healthcare. Much of that is really driven by student need. But what we are trying to do with the bill that we are working on is to really reevaluate our state and think about how we govern what used to have about 123,000 students, but today has 80,000 students. But these are many of these major issues that Vermont is facing kind of cut to the core of what many of us who grew up here or who have lived here, highly value. And so to reach that balance is difficult. There are no magic solutions to affordable housing unless we would like to throw a lot of government money at it. Vermont doesn't control the cost of materials. Vermont does not control the cost of labor. Same with healthcare. So we are doing the best with the situation in front of us. I think if we all got up here, we could point to a number of bills that are working to address affordability. I would just remind you that the 180 of us that are in the legislature also have to afford to live here, and we would agree. It is getting more and more challenging.
Thank you. Step forward and ask your question.
Can you hear me okay? Hi, I'm Shannon Hill. I'm a cave dweller from Bristol. If you don't know the reference to that, I'm happy to share that with you. I actually am a much better person with numbers and cows than I am at speaking, so I have written out what I'd like to share regarding Act 181. I'm writing, in this case, I'm speaking to express serious concerns with the impacts of Act 181. A rural landowner like myself and many others in our community, Act 181 shifts Vermont's land use rules to a tiered location-based system. While I support smart growth and environmental protection, remote rule and Tier 3 provisions appear to place heavy new burden on rural areas, mostly Tier 2 and Tier 3, without adequate compensation or consideration of traditional property rights. Specifically, the road rule, which is they're attempting to delay, would trigger a full Act 250 permit for any private road longer than 800 feet or combined of 2,000, as Senator Hardy already mentioned. Tier 2 areas, even for basic access to a farm, family home, or woodlot or field in rural Vermont where parcels are large and terrain is challenging, is effectively restricting how landowners can access and use their own property. Tier 3, the critical natural resource mapping, would automatically trigger Act 250 review for any development in those areas, such as an attempt to protect headwaters, habitat connectors, and forest blocks. Regardless of project size, draft maps rely on GIS modeling that may not match on-the-ground reality, and early input from rural landowners has been limited. These changes raise major questions for rural Vermonters. How will these rules protect the property rights of the families who have owned land for generations when they now face state-level permitting for routine access road or modest improvements without compensation for lost developmental values? I'm sorry. I have this, and I have a copy for each of our legislators. I'm passing it out to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Hi. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ellen Knoxville, Middlebury. I just want to thank all our legislators for all their hard work. It's a lot of work to be in there 12 hours a day. But I want to speak real quickly and then have a question about healthcare. As you all know in this room, 7 towns in Addison County voted on town meeting day to support H433 that would phase in universal health care, starting with universal primary care, which would save money, because if people get to their primary care doctor instead of going to the ER, which costs 10 times more, you detect it earlier and you save money. And I would say healthcare is one thing that is of concern to every single one of us in this room. We all need healthcare. So, thank you, Karen, for your committee finally taking H433, which would phase in universal health care, starting with universal primary care, off the wall. You heard very moving testimony from doctors, and I'm just gonna say one, 40-year-old Vermonter could not afford to go to his primary care physician, ended up with a stroke, will be on a ventilator for life. His conditions could have been, dealt with earlier and would have been manageable, and that was from a doctor at UVM. So thank you for doing this. But that bill is not in time for crossover. What we would ask you to do is please append a piece of that bill to the other bill you mentioned, S197. S197, I sound wonky here, but it's not a universal primary care bill. H433 is. Append a financing plan. Append an operational plan. So when you get back next year, you've got something to go on. And also I would say that for Representative Shai, if that gets to your committee, I think you've said you would appropriate, I hope, the finances we need to get that study. Believe me, our healthcare expenses, we all know this. It's affecting all of us, rural, urban, retired, non-retired. We have to do something. And this is a roadmap forward. And I would also point out about money, one real quick point. If we claw back the top 5% of the Trump tax cuts, I don't think most of us here are in the top 5%. Claw that back, you could get about $400 million just from that. So those just a few ideas, and thank you all, and hope you push forward on some of this important work. So thank you.
Would any of the legislators like to address the universal health care bill? Karen?
I'll be brief. I'll try not to make the red light come on. I think there's a huge re-energized feeling that universal access to primary health care is very important. It saves the system money. It results in better health care results for all of us who need it. And I wanted to thank the Appropriations Committee for funding AHEC, which is a way to increase our primary care physicians and get them to be educated in Vermont, stay in Vermont. There's a lot of programs that are addressing the workforce shortage in primary health care. What the Senate bill is doing is, it is a very different mechanism. It is working within the system and reallocating funding within the system using an existing mechanism that we have. It's called the Blueprint for Healthcare, and it's a comprehensive surround services primary care vehicle that's already in place. At the moment, because there are many large groups that are not in the entire insurance pool, we're working with very limited options, but we're exploring every single possibility. And we really appreciated the testimony on H433. And we're continuing to consider all avenues to make this accessible, because not enough of our resources are being dedicated to primary care. And we're talking about percentages that would make it work for everybody. So we're working on it, and thanks.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody else want to talk about primary care? Okay, next.
Wow, pretty lofty goals I was unaware of, so I'm gonna make it even more lofty. So it's my understanding, I apologize, I did not bring my initial research, so I'll go by memory. I won't remember the exact
Let
names.
us know who you are. And
Oh, sorry, Christine Stone, Leicester. So, it's my understanding we're getting 30,000 migrants in this state. So obviously that's going to be a huge strain on our already strained system. I know that, thank you for referencing the bill about higher education. I know the plan is to allow free college education to legal and illegal migrants. Our public school system right now is paying a little over $30,000 per EL language student. So my concern is, with a system that's already strained, how is this even possible if we're also going to provide universal primary care? Because obviously this would extend to this population. So.
Peter, you want to answer that? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
That's okay. Peter Conlon. I didn't hear it clearly as I had hoped. So does our state provide a federally required free and appropriate public education to all of our students? Yes, we do. That's the law. Do we have immigrants to Vermont? Yes, we do, whose children may require English language services in school. Yes, they do. Are we required by law to provide all children with access to a free and appropriate public education? Yes, we are. And we have always done that. I think we would do it even without a federal law. And I would say that would be regardless of immigration status. In terms of higher education, we have a number in the state of tuition break programs at our state universities and at UVM. It's mostly based on household income and reported taxed household income. It's a wonderful program to provide Vermonters with an affordable higher education. And one thing that we have definitely found in Vermont, one of the things that keeps young people in Vermont is going to college here. I would say it's a wonderful investment, especially as we work on our demographic challenges here. Thank you.
Can I rebut, please? Excuse me, sir. Can I rebut?
Sorry, if you would like to have a question, certainly.
All right, I'll get back.
Come right over to the mic.
Oh, that's all right. I think it's irrelevant.
I just want to add that
many of us, and probably many of you, us in the room, saw the statistics about actually population decline that happened in Vermont last year. A lot of that largely was due to changes in the demographics post-COVID. We had a lot of people moving to Vermont during COVID, and a lot of those people then have, in the last couple of years, have decided to leave the state, unfortunately. But 1,800 people, our decline was from 1,800 people. 600 of those people were decline in immigrants from other countries, largely due to the Trump policies of deporting immigrants and not welcoming immigrants to our country. I think it's really important for Vermonters to know that immigration is an important part of our population increase in the state. If we want to have a sustainable population in the state, we need to be welcoming and accepting of immigrants from other states and from other countries. They are actually a positive for our economy. They fill jobs, they start businesses, they contribute to our economy, and they are an important part of Vermont, and we should do everything we can to welcome immigrants from all over the world and all over the country to our state. It makes our state more sustainable, more affordable, and more welcoming to everybody, and I think that it's well worth all of the programs that we have to make sure that they are an integrated and integral part of our state. Thank you.
I'm not going to argue that statement one at all, except that you must be here documented, not undocumented. Then I'm 100% for that, 100%. If you're undocumented, we should do our best as a nation and a state to get you documented, because like you said, we need the help. We want the people, but not being documented or illegal is a huge problem. And we need to solve it. Unfortunately, we can't do that at the State House. We should be talking to our representatives on the federal level. But that's not going so well either. But I just thought I'd say that. And we do, in education, have another bill out to try to drive up the household income to $84,000 to offer more education for the less fortunate to get free college education at this point too.
One thing I appreciate you all responding, thank you. One thing I did not reference is in my research fiscally, it takes 5 to 10 years for an uneducated migrant, I won't argue the documented or undocumented, to actually come equal into what the state will spend on them. Now you need to understand this migration agenda to address aging and declining populations is a United Nations agenda. They put out a document in 2001, Replacement Migration, a Solution to Aging and Declining Populations. In 2006, they put out a document, Social Justice in an Open World. That's your migrant justice. So my point is that none of this is being developed by our legislature, and it has already been determined internationally that US taxpayers have the moral obligation to pay these bills. So I'm all for migrants. I'm a migrant, my family was a migrant, but this is a very different scenario and expectation than the migrants of the past.
Thank you. Step up.
Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Ernest Caswell. My friends know me as Buster. I'm an agricultural employee employed at Champlain Orchards. I've been working in agriculture all my life, mostly in the dairy farms. Now I'm in the fruits and vegetables. I'm a delivery driver. And I've been involved in affordable housing since 2018, trying to educate our housing experts, our developers, and others who may not be aware of the development needs of our agricultural community.
Here in Vermont, we have 54,900 direct jobs involved in agriculture, around 10,000 working on farms. Every agricultural employee, immigrants, migrants, and settled workers are essential. Since 2022, our governor has issued a proclamation recognizing the last 7 days of March as National Farm Worker Awareness Week within our state. It's rare a leader recognizes our essential agricultural community. And since 2022, they started working on developing farm worker needs. They are doing a repair program. They're working on building homes on the farm. Okay, that's just the beginning. They're missing out on the other elements. Technical support and off the farm houses. It takes a lot of work, a lot of advocacy, and a lot of leaders to step up to the plate and understand our agricultural needs, because we need to build homes for our agricultural community, just like we do senior citizens, just like we do low incomes, just like we do our homeless communities. Our agricultural community is not getting a piece of the pie, they're getting some crumbs. Let's get our agricultural community a piece of the pie so we can grow our agricultural community. And thank you, FFA, for leading us today. We need more agricultural education within our state if we're going to feed our citizens. Thank you.
I know that Ernie didn't ask a question, but I wanted to just mention the last time you stood up and spoke at I think it was the Weybridge breakfast, and you mentioned a report that you wanted to have updated, which is a report by the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board about migrant farm worker housing, or farm worker housing. And we did, as soon as you asked for that, I got an amendment on a housing bill, and that report will be updated by VHCB. They were very happy to do that. And then you sent me the governor's proclamation, and I actually read parts of it on the Senate floor during the week of Migrant Farm Worker Recognition Week. And so I really appreciate, Ernie, your advocacy. You have been the driving force for this issue for so many years. And I just want you to know that your voice is heard in the State House. So many people know who you are, and you've been just a great, great advocate for farm worker housing and for farm workers in general. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian Kemp. I live in the town of Cornwall. I manage a farm, and as you could probably guess, I'm here on 181. So much has been said that I already agree with, so I'm not going to be redundant on that. But I think our town of Cornwall is a prime example of what 181 is trying to achieve with this Tier 3 and the roadway and the conservation areas and wildlife habitat, all of that. We have a very strong conservation commission in Cornwall. We have already mapped out within our town those areas. And with the forest block issues, you know, the separation of forest blocks with roads and all. I would just like to put a perspective on that. Being a bedroom community to Middlebury, obviously we have very prominent, wealthy people coming back into Cornwall, building very expensive homes. With that being said, I'm not against that. I'm here to show an example of how this can work and why the state feels that we need to go above and beyond. We all have local zoning. We all have local development review boards. These projects are scrutinized already. These are permitted, and along with these people moving into to the villages and building these homes, we have second or third generation families that are still in Cornwall that would like to be able to think that their children could come home after they have to leave this state to make a career, a profitable career, that they could come back someday and not have to file for all these permits and additional costs. So I would encourage that we don't need this overreach from the state level. Let your towns do it. Now, I know the argument will be there's some towns that don't have the proper zoning and all, so let's get regional planning to help them and figure it out. And let's do this at our town levels and not a state level and make things more expensive and more egregious for people who cannot afford it. And then, I know I'm at the red light, I just, you know, this affects everybody in the state that owns land, not just ag, not just forestry. But the repercussions of this for ag and forestry with two separate, you know, careers, occupations that are already threatened. And a lot of these mappings also cover half of the Green Mountains, spine of the Green Mountains. And what they're after is the headwaters of the state now, not just our streams. That'll eliminate a lot of forestry projects. And that industry is already struggling as much as agriculture. So I'd like to keep that in mind. A former representative who lives in this county said, this is the largest grabland that he's seen since he grew up here.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian. There's just a couple things I want to add to what you said. First of all, there's a bill on our wall in the House, the Senate Natural Resources Committee that came over from the House Environment Committee that's about forestry and Act 250. And I believe, we haven't started working on it, I think we're starting next week, but I believe it would exempt even more. Forestry is largely exempt from Act 250, but it would exempt even more forestry from Act 250. And much of agriculture is already exempt from Act 250 for agricultural purposes. Point heard, I hear you. One thing I do want to mention that hasn't gotten as much attention is, you know, Tier 2 and Tier 3 have gotten a lot of attention, but Tier 1 has been really, really successful at increasing the number of housing starts and housing units we have developed in the last 2 years. And there's a chart that you can see there's a huge spike in housing starts in 2024 and 25 after the passage of Act 181. And this is largely because of doing exactly what you said, which is having the local zoning apply and not Act 250 apply, and having the local the Regional Planning Commission map those areas. So, you know, that's happening for Tier 1 and in all of the towns in Addison County, except for I think maybe Goshen, because it's so rural. There are areas that are Tier 1 where housing has been really, really successful at being built across the state. So I just, I know that you're asking for that same thing in Tier 2 and Tier 3, I hear that, but I don't want people to forget that has been really successful in Tier 1, and that I think Cornwall, where you live, has 2 sections of Cornwall that are sort of designated for, you know, this is where we want to develop more dense housing.
Village centers.
Yeah, the village centers, and it's been really successful. So, you know, I think 181 has gotten sort of blasted for these 2 things that are more controversial, but there's a lot of really good things that have been really effective in the bill and the act, and that has included building more housing. So I just want to make sure that doesn't get lost in the conversation. Thank you.
Okay, step right up.
Good morning, Mark Bobin, Addison, Vermont. I want to start out by saying that Act 181 should be repealed completely. It is unconstitutional. It is a resurrection of the Marxist doctrine that land and property belongs to the community. State of Vermont was founded with grants in fee simple, all rights given to the people. They've been passed down to us through warranty deeds. Now, when the state starts saying you need a permit for this, for any development, that means the development is not part of the rights. That means they cannot tax development value on the land. We should be considering that. And the other thing is, in Justice Brandeis said the right to control access is the primary right of ownership. So if you're gonna adopt this Marxist philosophy, what's to keep the state from saying, you have an empty bedroom, we're gonna put a homeless person in there? As this goes back to the other thing is, Act 181 is arbitrary and capricious. So they're sitting up there in a cubicle, drawing lines, telling us what to do. 84%, or 84.76% of the state is privately owned. You cannot protect 30% or 50% by 2050 without the state having to pay the compensation for the taking. There's a case recently in California, Cedar something. It cited the case in Vermont, J. Paul Presso and Priscilla Presso versus the city of Burlington. And they state that intrusion on property, however minimal, is a taking. So this is going to be a taking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. We're running close on time, but
Can I go?
let's keep the line coming. I see that
Right, let me
there's still quite a few people.
Let me see, can you hear me if I'm this close? Is it better?
You're fine.
Okay. And a lot of you know that I've been working with a group, everyone knows me. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Yeah, Superna New Haven. Sorry, I was getting to that. And an initiative to make working horse farms actually considered as farms across the board in Vermont. And I've spoken on that, and I'm not going to repeat anything that I've said before, but I have a question for Ruth Hardy on natural resources. And because most of the talk about this has focused on current use practices, I want to shift the conversation a bit to natural resources and conservation. And the question would be for Ruth that if there's large hayfields close to Middlebury, let's just say, that belong to a horse farm that is run as a nonprofit with a board, and they get flooded out, and that nonprofit has to buy $30,000 worth of hay from New York and can't even afford to reseed their fields, etc., because they are not included in disaster relief, and they can't even apply for grants to help them to do it because they're not considered agriculture. I mean, I don't think that's a necessarily good thing. They also have requested help with learning to be able to effectively rotate their grazing land, etc. And again, when they apply for grants or for help, they're turned down because they're told a horse farm is not farming. And so the question for Ruth, and I have testimony here, but it's really too long to read, and it's from Kathleen Gill, who's a veterinarian in our county, and she's also on the board of this farm, which is the Eddy Farm that I'm talking about. And she wrote this eloquent testimony of all the obstacles they've had by not being. But I just want to ask Ruth, do you really think that that land should not be included and protected under the statutes in Vermont that protect other farms? I think that's the end of the question. Question mark.
Okay, I'm gonna give you her testimony, we'll
Okay.
read it later.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. I'm not sure why you're singling me out with this question, but
You're on natural resources.
oh, because I'm on natural resources. Okay. Well, I love horse farms. I grew up riding horses, working on horse farms. I consider them farms and farming, but the definition of farming in Vermont is really about agricultural production and the production of food or crops or livestock. And that has been the traditional definition of farming, and those are the types of farms that get the benefits of being a farm. I do think it's fair to look at that definition again, particularly when it comes to the sort of land preservation and haying and you know the economics of a horse farm. I know that this is something that you've been advocating for a number of years. There have been a number of bills. It has not actually come to the Senate Natural Resources Committee as an issue. There's never been a bill there about this particular issue. So if it does come, I would love to have you in, and maybe you and I can work on something for next session. But I think that it deserves conversation, and I think that there's lots of people who have opinions about it. I think that the definition of farming has been one to protect farmers who are actually producing goods on their farm. So more conversation. I don't know what else you wanted me to. I think it's really sad when there's a natural disaster and people are not able to get the support they need to be able to recover from that. And that's why I was the lead sponsor on the Farm and Forestry Security Fund. Senator Heffernan was a co-sponsor, and the two of us and our two committees worked really hard to pass that bill, which would help farmers recover from natural disasters and have access to funds in the immediate aftermath of a frost, a flood, a drought, and that definitely is something that we're hoping to get funding for in the budget, and to be able to respond to farmers who've lost things during a natural disaster. So I guess we should continue to talk soon, please.
Ag is currently taking this up, thanks to Sue and many others in the equine industry, we'll say. Our biggest concern was when we redefine, because that's what it's going to take, is a redefinition, is that we want to make sure that they are farming, that you're not going to end up with somebody that's caretaking horses and making a really good income and being able to use it as a loophole to save on land use. And so it's going to be a fine line. We have heard they came last year. They didn't keep their voices up, and if you don't keep your voices up at the State House, it quickly goes quiet. Luckily, they have a lobbyist now to help their voice stay heard. They are being heard, and we're going to do what we can to help the actual equine farmer who produces their hay, tends for the horses, that hopefully they'll be able to get into this. But it's a long road yet.
And I will just add, I don't know what the bill is that you're working on, but
it's going to be eventually added into maybe.
okay, well, I'll wait till I see it.
Yep.
I mean, one issue is specifically is, and I believe Rep. Conlon mentioned this a few times ago, is that every time you add something to the definition, it costs a lot of money. And it specifically costs in property taxes. Property taxes right now are a big issue. So another concern, another consideration that we'll have to take into consideration is the cost to the property taxes and whether or not our state can afford it right now, given everything else. So I do think that will be an issue whenever this is brought forward. But thank you.
Patrick Lawrence, Middlebury. Many of you have been hearing from me about two bills, H650, which is an opt-out bill for technology in schools, and then H830, which is a registry bill for ed tech in classrooms. That's actually not what I'm here to talk about or ask questions about, but there's a relation to that. So my daughter and my wife actually both ride with Sue. And they've also ridden at the Eddy Farm, and I was there helping unload the multiple semi-trucks worth of hay from coming into Eddy Farm during that summer when there was the drought, and then they had to ship all this hay from New York. So there was a real tangible impact, and I think when I think about the relationship to technology is that these kinds of activities, such as horse riding and farming, et cetera, and are real positive ways to get our children out into the community, out onto the land, and it really breeds, brings more FFA jackets into the room, and which I think is really important. So, when I think about the amount of money that we actually spend on things like that are counter to that, so the the ACSD budget on for technology is $1.6 million, and the best estimate that I've heard for the cost of this reclassification for tax purposes is on the order of tens of thousands of dollars. It seems like the equation really would there's easy ways to absorb those tax costs, and I do understand the implications for the property taxes, which are real. But my question is for, since we've already heard from the senators, if any of the representatives have anything to say about that reclassification, especially for disaster relief and property taxes.
Which reclassification?
Horse farms.
Any of the reps want to answer?
Can I say one more thing quick?
We're running close on time
I
now.
know
I'd
we
like
are.
to make sure that everybody gets. Will you go ahead?
Oh, then I won't.
At the microphone?
Sorry. Oh.
You're going to.
Well, I really wanted Allison Eastman to be here, but she couldn't make it. But when our last meeting, just kept saying, this is pennies on the dollars thing. We have a survey of about 140 horse farms, working farms, like we looked up the LLC, 60 of them answered. Only 20 of them in the state of Vermont even qualify, like you were saying, it has to be the real working farms, even qualify for this. And they already all have their land. They think they qualify, maybe they don't all qualify. They already have their land in current use. And so the impact, as Patrick said, and as Allison said, it's pennies on the dollar impact. And the other things don't necessarily cost. Just being able to write a grant to get aid in the sense of for the disaster relief or managing your land better. And it's all over the map in the state of Vermont in the statutes. Sometimes we're fully ag as horse farmers, then sometimes we're not. It just needs to be fixed.
Thank you, Sue. Come right forward. Next.
Hello, I'm Leslie Bienvenue, and I'm from Leicester. And my comment and question is about, housing and how immigration is affecting housing, and also how unemployment is being affected by immigration and our declining school systems. So we seem to be in a tangle of string where we've got a declining school system and we're merging, and yet we have a shortage of housing, and then grants are being given in areas that are not bringing in jobs to our community, so to get everybody working, to get our economy back up. And so I don't see where we're moving forward. I just feel like this string is getting more tangled. And so who is working on bringing the jobs into our state, bringing our jobs into our county, and then bring in immigration, legal immigrants to put to work and put Vermonters to work? What is being done about that piece of this puzzle? Thank you.
It's not a question but comment, has to do with that same thing. I may be wrong. My name is Lynn Dyke, I'm from Bristol. Like I said, I may be wrong, but I really strongly think there is a difference between legal immigration and illegal immigration. I believe there is a difference between citizen and non-citizen. And right now, it seems like we are doing so much more for illegal immigrants. We are now considered a sanctuary state. And being a citizen to me means we get to pay for all of this. And I just don't understand. When we talk about immigration, I like it. I do not like illegal immigration, and that's all I have to say.
Any of the legislators want to make a comment? No? If not, go right, come right up.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Justin Sienkiewicz. I live in Addison. I served in the U.S. Marine Corps from 2008 to 2013. I served on one deployment to Afghanistan in 2011. So in 2013, after I got out of the Marine Corps, I moved to the state. I became a resident of the state. And ever since then, I have been struggling to find a home for me, my wife, and our 2 children. And in parts because of the taxes that continue to be added and/or the taxes that are already in place but continue to see increases. And the other part is I have seen Montpelier prioritize illegal aliens and refugees over our own people, including our veterans. So the question that I would like to ask our legislators is why are illegal aliens and refugees prioritized over our veterans when it should be the other way around? Thank you.
Any of the legislators want to attempt to answer that question? Or make the comment?
Okay. First of all, immigration policy is federal policy. Any immigration policy changes you want to see can't happen in Montpelier. Those are federal issues, and you should reach out to our federal delegation and to the federal government to make those changes. There have been many, many attempts at having bipartisan federal immigration policy. There was an attempt just a few years ago, and it was blocked by our now president. So there are ways to make bipartisan immigration policy, but we can't do it at the state level. It's not state policy. In terms of prioritizing veterans and military retirees, last year we passed we passed a major tax bill. S51 was the number of the bill. It was actually my bill. I'm the lead sponsor of it, and it was a bill that decreased the taxes for military retirees and veterans. It was a part of a large tax package. So I can send you that piece of legislation, sir, if you'd like. We do everything we can to prioritize military retirees and veterans. There is a Vermont National Guard and Veterans Caucus, which I'm a member of, and I know many legislators are members of. We meet regularly with our Adjutant General and the legislature. We are the only state in the country that has the legislature elect our Adjutant General of our Vermont National Guard. I am in contact with our Adjutant General regularly. I spoke to him this week about what is happening with our troops that have been deployed to the Middle East and what we're doing to help the families of those troops. And to make sure particularly those that were deployed in early December or mid-December are brought home because they've been gone for a very long time. So we do everything we can in the legislature to prioritize veterans and military retirees. We don't make the immigration policy, so we can't impact that. Thank you.
And the last word, Representative North.
The last word. All right, first of all, thank you for your service, and all other veterans who may be here, thank you for your service. And I did what Ruth already mentioned what I was gonna even say. One of the major successes we did have this year, in fact it was last year, was putting in place the state tax exemption for the majority of veteran benefit recipients. We haven't yet done what most other states have done and give all veterans tax benefits state tax exemption, but we gave most of it, just like probably better than 80% of the veterans benefits are tax exempt. So yeah, that was a really good collaborative effort across the aisle, very high support in both chambers. of the house. So just wanted to let you know that that got been put in place, so a success. Oh, one other thing is, similar to that, I did put an amendment to our tax bill this year to do that same kind of thing for all Social Security benefits. That did not pass on the House floor, but I tried. I did try to get that same kind of state tax exemption for the majority, like 80% of Social Security benefit recipients. And didn't quite make it on the floor, but we tried.
Thank you, Representative Norton. Don't anybody go anywhere, there's lunch coming next. But before we do, I'd like to introduce to you the president of Addison County Farm Bureau, Charlie Roy.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Thank you. This is going to be an end of our legislative sessions, so everybody gets to speak, and we'll start up again first part of February. I guess we did one Monday meeting and then Saturday meetings. It seemed like it worked good for everybody. We got good participation, so we're going to keep that up. And then I'd also like to thank our cooks out back. They've been cooking last night and today. So we got Eugene Warner, we got Bill Scott, and then Dustin Dyer. He donates his time. Dustin Dyer runs Craven's on 116 and a catering service. So if you need anything, look it up on Facebook. Excellent cook. And then I'd also like to thank Lane Farms. They donated the meats and the sausages and everything. And they do home meats and grains located on Moncton Road in just north of Bristol. And I'd like to tell everybody, let's support our family farms. That's where it can start, right here. You know, we have Knott Brothers, we have Aharts, and many other farms that produce own meat, and it's great stuff. Let's support our family farms. And then if we start right here, just work our way around, we have a great spaghetti dinner planned for you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Really like to say one last thing.
Hi, everyone. On behalf of the Farm Bureau, again, we would like to say thank you so much for coming. We are so happy that you are all here, and we're happy that we heard your voice, everyone's. So, we do have lunch. Don't run away. Please come and eat, sit down, chat. We would love to talk to you all more and meet everybody. So, thank you.
Thank you all.